So, how many of you plan on taking Mr. Reese's dual enrollment classes next year? If you are, great. If you're not, let me tell you, you're going to miss out on one of my favorite classes that I took in high school. For this class, if you asked me to write a 1,500 word essay in less than a week, I would have stared you in the face and laughed. But you never know what can happen when you're granted the opportunity to write about topics that you're extremely passionate about. I strongly believe that you should take Mr. Reese's dual enrollment course because it's very fun and also prepares you for college style classes. So, English 1101 and 1102 were eye openers for me in the field of literature. Before taking this course, I did not see how much literature actually plays a role in our lives. Any medium that conveys a narrative form is, or any medium that conveys a narrative is a form of literature. So, for instance, literature can be in the form of movies, comics, video games, books, all the sorts. Literature was the foundation of my childhood, honestly. I started playing Halo when I was in first grade, even though, the game's rated M and all that. I started playing Halo in first grade, and it just opened my mind to a wide scope of storytelling and literature. It was really crazy. And for a while, that was the just sort of foundation that I'd always go to. If I ever had trouble in school or something, I would go back and play me some Halo, and that was also a way I could connect to my dad, because we didn't have that great of a bond, but literature was a way I could connect to him. Then also, literature in any form can tell or show something important to its audience without explicitly spelling it out. So, symbolism is huge, not just in books. Let me give you a very specific example. The Legend of Korra, even though people see this as kind of like a iffy series and I have my own opinions about it, but it has great symbolism about extremism. All four main villains inside the series are representations of extremism. In the first season, we had Amon, who had a very extremist outlook of equality. He tried to tear down the establishment and establish some sort of notion of equality, but he honestly took his means way too far. Then we had the second villain, Unalaq, who was striving for harmony between the human and spirit worlds, but in the process ended up destroying himself. In season 3, we had Zahir, who was a spiritual zealot who believed in anarchy was the natural state of everything. And then we had Kuvira in season 4, who believed that unity was the overarching premise for everyone that they should follow. And this isn't the only time that something other than a book has some extreme symbolism. Some of the video games that you may play, like Legend of Zelda, for instance, has some great symbolism in there. If you've ever played Ocarina of Time, it's a story about coming of age and realizing that the world is not as innocent as you think it is. And so there are bits and pieces of great literature really hidden in our society because you're usually taught, well, literature is just, books and reading, but actually it's way more than that. It's just all sorts of different mediums that you can really get into. And this course really did open my eye. Creative freedom in this class is key, okay? So nobody likes talking about something they're barely interested in. And so just look at the ways and things that you enjoy and see if you can talk about them in some way. All but one, okay, so funny fact for this class, all but one of my essays were about video games and anime. I had one essay that was on something else completely different. All of my essays I wrote about the Destiny lore, I wrote about Legend of Zelda, I wrote about the Seven Deadly Sins anime/manga series, and I made these very long essays, and Mr. Reece can tell you that I don't want to sound boastful or anything, but I probably had some of the longest essays in his class. Or maybe not, I don't know. He'll have to let me know about that. But I wrote very long essays about different forms of literature that I really enjoy. But even still, this very fun course is able to reward students with college credit and prepares you for more college style classes. So being prepared for what comes in college is completely key. I wasn't completely prepared for Dalton State, and this semester has been a whole whirlwind of emotions. With balancing a job and my classes, I was originally taking 6 at the beginning of the semester. I dropped out of 1 because it didn't actually give me the credit that I needed. But even still, just holding 5 classes, and I was taking honors as well, on top of a job, man, let me tell you, that is some stressful times. But college life is extremely difficult and very different from high school. So in high school, you have a very set schedule that you have to stick to. But in college, your schedule's kind of all over the place and very flexible, and you only really actually show up to classes like once or twice a week, which can really throw you off kilter because most of your work is going to be done outside the classroom, not inside the classroom. So it's kind of funny getting used to that, but once you get used to it, and you really have to adjust to it, because there's not a lot of assignments that can really keep your grade up. So in Mr. Reese's dual enrollment English 1101 and 1102, your grades are pretty much exclusively essays, and maybe some minor participation grades here and there, but for the most part, essays, and then your final is a research paper. So it's all about those really big assignments. And what I've learned in college is a lot of my classes are structured the same way. You got these really big assignments with not really a whole lot of small assignments in between to really boost your grade. So you have to really try and study and work hard in order to keep your grade up. And so yeah, in college, but Mr. Reese's class really prepares you for that, with the absence of a lot of really small stuff. You don't really have to, or with the absence of small stuff, you really have to try on the big stuff to actually be able to pass the classes. And not even to mention the obvious benefit of taking a dual enrollment course is you will get college credit for this class. Now, take note that just because you take his class does not guarantee the college credit that you need, because some schools will say that we don't really take that kind of credit, and you have to before you get into this class, you need to make sure that what college you're going into, you can really transfer your credits into, because nobody wants to take English 1101 then have to go to let's say a prestigious university and have to retake the course because that credit doesn't transfer over. So just be very mindful of that. But other than that, you really should take this class, because Mr. Reece is honestly one of the best teachers at Northwest. If you're taking this class right now, honestly, you should know this. I mean, even if this is your first class you're taking from him, and I really hope that he's handling this weird COVID-19 dynamic pretty well. Pretty sure he is. Great teacher. He's very kind and understanding, and during class discussion, he's also very sarcastic and funny. Of course, you probably picked up on that. But he's also a full believer in the idea that any medium of entertainment has the potential to be great literature. He's not one of those teachers that's just going to be like, well, here's a great book, we're only going to talk about that. He's open to various different forms of discussion, and you can talk about all different kinds of forms of literature. When one of the assignments we had in his class was each student would write down a list of 10 things or 10 pieces of literature they thought was the best overall. And then you would get into groups, and then you would compile them into a giant symposium there, and you'd mark out overlapping ones, but you would keep that large list. And then all the other groups in the class would come together as a class and create this giant list. And I was actually the person who had to compile all of them. And we ended up having a list of 200 or 300 different things you could go through. I mean, most of them were books, mind you, but there was also songs, movies, TV series, anime, all different forms. And there was just so much to go through. And so if you're trying to find great literature, Mr. Reece is going to be your guy on that. And honestly, just flat out, if you're a nerd like me, you definitely don't want to pass up on the opportunity to take this class, even if, let's say, you're not going to get credit for it. If you just need to take a literature course as it is, and let's say you've already gotten all your high school credits and you don't want to take, or you've already taken AP, or if you have an open slot, this is definitely a class you want to take. You don't want to mess up on it.